Two places you should never stay after midnight: a train that takes the dead, and a flight that never landed. If you hear the call, don't answer. The station was never meant to be this quiet. Arif noticed it the moment he stepped onto the platform. It wasn't just the absence of people, it was something deeper, the kind of silence that feels like the world itself is holding its breath. It was 2:07 a.m. The last train had already left. A weak yellow light flickered above platform 1, barely illuminating the cracked tiles and rusted benches. The station sign hung crooked, half the letters faded away by time. Somewhere far in the distance, a dog howled, and then abruptly stopped, as if something had silenced it. Arif adjusted the strap of his bag and walked toward the ticket counter. A single dim bulb glowed inside. Behind the counter sat an old man, thin, motionless, watching. "Is there any train left tonight?" Arif asked. The old man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at Arif for a long moment, as if trying to recognize him. Then slowly he said, "There is one." Arif sighed in relief. "Good. When?" The old man leaned forward slightly. 2:13. Arif checked his watch. Just a few minutes away. "Which platform?" The old man's expression changed. "Platform 0. Arif frowned. "There's no platform 0 here." The old man didn't smile. "That's why you should not go." Arif let out a small laugh. "Come on, uncle. A train is a train." The old man's voice dropped to a whisper. "If you hear the announcement, ignore it. If you see the train, do not board. And if someone calls your name, do not answer." The light inside the counter flickered once, then went out. The old man was gone. Arif stood there in the darkness, his heart beating just a little faster now. "Great," he muttered. "Gee, creepy station, creepy people." He walked back to the platform and sat down. 2:10 a.m. The air felt colder, too cold. He rubbed his arms and looked around. The station seemed different, the shadows deeper, the edges less clear. Then the speakers crackled, a burst of static. Arif looked up. The announcement system shouldn't even be working at this hour. Then a voice came through, distorted, broken, almost human. "Attention, please." The sound cut in and out, like something struggling to speak. "Train arriving at platform 0. Arif froze. A chill ran down his spine. The old man's words echoed in his head. "Ignore it." He stood up slowly. The voice came again. "Passengers for platform 0. Proceed." Against his better judgment, Arif turned. At the far end of the station, something had changed. Then there was a passage there now, a narrow, dark corridor that hadn't been there before. At its end, a faint blue light. Arif swallowed. "This is stupid," he whispered, but he started walking anyway. The corridor felt wrong, too long, too quiet. His footsteps echoed unnaturally, bouncing off unseen walls. The air grew colder with every step. Halfway through, he stopped. He could hear something behind him. Footsteps, slow, dragging. He turned. Nothing. The entrance of the corridor was gone. Only darkness. Arif's breathing quickened. He turned back and hurried forward. The light at the end grew brighter. And suddenly, he stepped out, onto another platform. This place was dead. Cracked stone, broken lights, rust everywhere. A faint blue glow covered everything like a thin layer of decay. A sign hung above. Barely visible. 0. Arif's heart sank. Platform 0. Then he felt it. A vibration beneath his feet. Not loud, not like a normal train. Something deeper, like something moving beneath the ground. The fog ahead began to shift, and then it appeared, a train, black, silent, sliding into the platform without a single sound. The doors opened on their own. Inside, people, dozens of them, sitting still, not moving, not breathing, watching. A man near the door slowly turned his head toward Arif. His face was pale, too pale, his eyes empty. And then he smiled. "You're late," he said. Arif stepped back. No, but behind him, there was no way back. only darkness. Inside the train, all the passengers began to move, slowly, at the same time. Their heads turned toward him, their mouths opened, and together they whispered, "New passenger." Arif couldn't move. His body refused. His mind screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to run. The train stood before him, its doors open like a mouth waiting to swallow him whole. The passengers inside were no longer still. They were standing now, one by one. Their movements were slow, unnatural, like broken puppets being pulled by invisible strings. A woman near the window stood up, her head tilted sharply to one side. Her neck made a soft cracking sound. She looked directly at Arif and smiled. Her lips split open wider than they should. "You came," she whispered. Arif staggered backward. "No, I didn't." A child's voice interrupted him. "Everyone comes." Arif looked down. A small boy stood near the train door. Burn marks covered half his face, one eye missing, the other staring. "We were like you," the boy said softly. "We thought we could leave." Arif's throat went dry. "What is this place?" The boy pointed behind Arif. Arif turned and saw nothing. No corridor, no station, just endless black. "You crossed," the boy said. "There is no going back." Arif felt something vibrate in his pocket. His phone. He pulled it out. No signal, no battery, but a message appeared. "Don't board." His hands trembled. Another message. "Ring the bell." Arif looked up, far at the end of the platform. A rusted bell hung from a broken pole. The passengers saw it too. Their expressions changed instantly, from calm to hungry. "No," the pale man near the door said. "You don't need that. Come inside." His voice deepened. Something else was speaking through him now. Arif took a step toward the bell. Immediately, the passengers reacted. They began moving faster, crawling, dragging themselves out of the train. Their bodies twisted. Some had broken limbs, some were burned, some were incomplete. A woman crawled forward, her legs missing below the knees. "Stay," she begged. "It's cold outside." Arif ran. The ground beneath him felt unstable, like walking on something alive. He could hear whispers all around him now, voices overlapping, begging, crying, calling his name. "Arif." He froze. The voice, it sounded like his mother. "Arif, come back." His eyes filled with tears. For a moment, he almost turned. Then he remembered the warning. If someone calls your name, do not answer. He clenched his fists and kept running. He reached the bell. It hung just above his head. Hurry, he jumped, grabbed the rope, and pulled. Gong. The sound echoed across the platform. Everything stopped. The passengers froze mid-motion. The train trembled. Then they screamed, all of them, at once. A sound so loud, so painful, it felt like it was tearing Arif's mind apart. "Stop him!" The pale man lunged forward, his face splitting open, revealing something inside. Not flesh, not bone, just darkness. Arif pulled the rope again. Gong! The train shook violently. The lights flickered. The shadows began to tear, but the pale man kept coming. "You belong here now," he hissed. Arif pulled the rope one last time. Gong! The third bell changed everything. The platform cracked, the train screamed, and the dead remembered. The passengers stopped chasing. Instead, they turned toward the pale man. Something shifted in their eyes. Not hunger anymore. Recognition. "You," the burned child whispered. "You locked the doors." The pale man staggered back. "No. You left us," the woman said. "You escaped." Arif realized the truth. This wasn't just a train. This was a grave, and he was the keeper, the one who made sure no one left. Arif shouted, "Jalal-ud-Din," the name echoed. The pale man froze. His form began to break apart. "No, don't. You caused the crash," Arif yelled. "You trapped them here." The passengers moved toward him, slowly, together. Jalal-ud-Din screamed, his body twisted, collapsed. And then they grabbed him, dragged him into the train. The doors slammed shut. The train began to move, this time with sound, a loud metallic roar. It pulled away into the fog, taking the dead with it, taking him with it. The platform collapsed. The darkness swallowed everything. Morning. A station worker found Arif lying unconscious on platform 1. No injuries, no train, no platform 0, but in his hand, a rusted bell rope. That night, at exactly 2:13 a.m., Arif's phone lit up. One message. Next train arriving. And outside his window, in the distance, he heard it. A train. Next part, Gate 13, final boarding. Ryan Carter had worked night security at the airport for almost 3 years. He had seen everything: drunk passengers, delayed flights, angry travelers, even medical emergencies. But nothing ever truly scared him. Airports, especially in the United States, were built to feel controlled, monitored, and safe. Cameras everywhere, lights always on, systems always running. At least, that's what he used to believe. It was 2:08 a.m. when his shift took him toward Terminal C. Night shifts were always quieter, fewer passengers, fewer flights, and long stretches of silence broken only by distant announcements and the hum of air conditioning. Ryan preferred it that way. He checked his watch. 2:10 a.m. As he walked past Gate 12, something caught his attention. A light, flickering, from Gate 13. Ryan slowed down. And Gate 13 was not supposed to be active. In fact, it wasn't supposed to exist. Officially, the airport had removed Gate 13 years ago. The numbering jumped from 12 to 14. Passengers never questioned it. Many buildings skipped the number 13 for superstition, but employees knew Gate 13 was still physically there, closed, locked, unused. Ryan stepped closer. The electronic display above the gate flickered once, then turned on. Green text appeared. Flight 707, final boarding. Ryan frowned. That's not possible. He pulled out his radio. Control, this is Carter. I've got an active display at gate. Static. Loud. Then silence. His radio died. Ryan tapped it. Nothing. A cold feeling crept up his spine. He looked back at the display. Still there. Still glowing. Final boarding. The gate door, which should have been locked tight, was slightly open, just enough to reveal darkness inside. Ryan hesitated. He remembered something one of the older staff had said months ago during a late-night break. Kid, if you ever see lights on at Gate 13, walk the other way. Ryan had laughed back then. Now he wasn't laughing. This is probably just a system glitch, he muttered. He pushed the door open. The air inside was different. Colder, heavier. The emergency lights cast a dim red glow across the empty waiting area. Dust floated in the air like it hadn't been disturbed in years, but the place wasn't empty. People were sitting there, passengers, dozens of them. Ryan froze. They sat perfectly still in the chairs facing the boarding gate. No one talked, no one moved. No phones, no luggage movement, just silence. Hey, Ryan called out. This gate is closed. You can't be here. No response, not even a glance. Ryan stepped closer. Something felt wrong, very wrong. The passengers looked off, their skin too pale, their posture too stiff, and then he noticed they had no shadows. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. What the hell? At that moment, the overhead speaker crackled. Then a voice came through. Calm, clear, but wrong. Final call for Flight 707. Every passenger stood up. At the exact same time, Ryan stumbled back. This isn't right. They began walking, slowly, toward the boarding gate. Ryan watched in horror as one of them stepped forward, passed through the gate doorway, and disappeared. Not walked away, not turned a corner, vanished. Another followed, then another, one by one, gone. Ryan felt his legs weaken. No. A woman stopped in front of him. She turned her head slowly. Her face was burned, half of it melted. But her eyes, They were empty. "We missed our flight," she whispered. Ryan's heart slammed against his chest. "What flight?" She smiled. "Years ago." Ryan couldn't move. His mind screamed at him to run, but his body refused to listen. The woman stood inches away from him, her burned face barely holding together. The smell hit him next, charred flesh mixed with something cold, like a morgue. "We waited," she whispered. Ryan forced himself to speak. "For what?" Her smile widened unnaturally. "For boarding." Behind her, the line of passengers continued moving, step by step, into nothing, disappearing into the gate. Ryan turned his head. There was no plane, no jet bridge, just darkness, endless darkness. Then the voice came again. "Passenger remaining." Ryan froze. "No." The woman's head snapped toward him, then slowly. Every other passenger stopped and turned toward him, dozens of hollow eyes, watching, boarding. "For you." Ryan stumbled backward. "I'm not getting on that thing." A man stepped forward from the line, tall, thin, dressed in what looked like an old pilot uniform, but his chest caved in as if crushed. His eyes were black voids. "You already did," he said. Ryan shook his head violently. No, I didn't." The man tilted his head. "Flight 707. Ryan's blood ran cold. That number, he remembered it now. 20 years ago, a crash, a flight that never made it, killed everyone on board. And now, they were here, still boarding, still waiting, still trapped. Ryan turned and ran. The hallway outside Gate 13 was gone, replaced by darkness. He slammed into something solid, a wall, no exit. Behind him, footsteps, dozens of them, slow, dragging. He turned. The passengers were no longer walking normally. They were crawling, twisting, like their bodies bending in impossible ways, coming for him. "You're late," they whispered. Ryan screamed. "Get away from me." A hand grabbed his arm, ice cold. He looked down. A child, half his face burned away, the other half, smiling. "Stay with us." Ryan yanked his arm free and stumbled back. "No, I'm leaving." But the gate behind him opened wider. Black wind rushed out, pulling, calling. The pilot stepped forward again. "You're the last one." Ryan shook his head, tears forming. "I'm not part of this." The pilot leaned closer. "Yes, you are." The wind inside Gate 13 was no longer just wind. It felt alive. Ryan could feel it pressing against his skin, crawling under his clothes, wrapping around his chest like invisible hands trying to pull him forward. The darkness beyond the gate wasn't empty. It moved, shifting like a living thing, breathing slowly, waiting. The passengers had surrounded him completely now. There was no exit, no hallway, no airport, only Gate 13, and them. Dozens of faces stared at him, burned, broken, frozen in the moment of their deaths. Some had hollow eyes, some had twisted limbs, some looked almost normal, until you noticed their skin didn't quite sit right on their bones, and all of them were smiling, not with happiness, with hunger. "You're the last one," the pilot said again. His voice echoed strangely, as if it came from somewhere deeper than his body. His uniform hung loosely, torn at the edges, stained with something dark and dried. His chest still looked crushed inward, as though an invisible force pressed him from all sides. Ryan shook his head slowly. "I'm not part of this." The pilot tilted his head. "Yes, you are." Behind him, the black doorway pulsed again. Ryan glanced toward it, and instantly regretted it. For a brief moment, the darkness inside parted, and he saw something. Not a plane, not a gate, but rows of seats stretching into endless black, filled with shapes that weren't quite human anymore. Faces pressed against the void, mouths open in silent screams, hands reaching out. Too many hands, overlapping, clawing, desperate. The darkness snapped shut again. Ryan stumbled back, nearly falling. No, that's not real. But deep down, he knew it was. Now this wasn't just a haunted gate, this was a trap, a cycle, and he was next. The child stepped forward again, the same one from before, half his face burned, one eye missing. But now, up close, Ryan could see something else. Tears, black, oily tears running down what remained of his cheek. "We didn't want to stay," the child whispered. Ryan swallowed hard. "What happened to you?" The child didn't answer directly. Instead, he raised his small hand and pointed toward the pilot. He closed the door. The air shifted. Ryan looked at the pilot. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those empty black eyes. "You locked them in?" Ryan said, his voice barely steady. The pilot took a step forward. "It was procedure." "Procedure?" Ryan's voice rose. "They died." The pilot's jaw tightened. There was fire, panic. If the door stayed open, the entire plane would have exploded, Ryan snapped. Silence. The passengers around them began to move again, slowly, circling, tightening the space around Ryan. "You chose to save yourself," Ryan said, realization hitting him harder with every word. The pilot's voice dropped. "I did what I had to do." "No," Ryan said. "You left them." A low sound began to rise from the passengers. Not a scream. Not yet. Something deeper. Something building. The woman with the burned face stepped closer. Her melted skin twitched slightly as she spoke. "We screamed." Another voice joined. "We begged." Another. "He didn't open the door." The voices overlapped, growing louder, forming a chorus of pain and anger. The pilot's calm demeanor began to crack. "You don't understand," he shouted. The darkness behind him pulsed violently. "I kept control. I prevented worse. You left us to burn," the woman screamed. The sound exploded through the space. The wind surged. The shadows twisted. Ryan stepped back, heart racing. The passengers were no longer looking at him. They were looking at the pilot. And this time, they weren't smiling. The pilot turned, backing toward the gate. "Stay back," he warned. But his voice had changed. There was fear in it now. Real fear. The child stepped forward again, his expression no longer sad, but cold. "You don't leave," he said quietly. The passengers moved together, not crawling, not dragging, walking, steady, purposeful. The pilot raised his hand as if to stop them, but his arm flickered, parts of it dissolving into black smoke before reforming again. "No," he whispered. Ryan watched, frozen. The balance had shifted. For the first time since this nightmare began, the ghosts were no longer hunting him. They were hunting him, the pilot. The darkness inside the gate began to pull again. Stronger now. The air howled as if something massive was breathing from the other side. The pilot stumbled. "No, I control this." But his voice sounded hollow. False. The passengers closed in. Hands reached out, dozens of them. Cold, burned, broken. And they grabbed him. The pilot screamed. Not a human scream. Something deeper. Something ancient. "No, I brought them here. I guide the boarding." "You stay," the woman said. Her voice was final. Absolute. The passengers pulled. The pilot's body stretched unnaturally, his form breaking apart into layers of shadow and ash. His face twisted into something unrecognizable, features collapsing inward, eyes dissolving into darkness. Ryan covered his ears, but it didn't help. The sound wasn't just outside, it was inside his head, a chorus of pain, of years, of endless waiting. The passengers dragged the pilot backward, toward the gate, toward the darkness. For a moment, the pilot locked eyes with Ryan, and in that instant, Ryan saw it. Not anger, not hatred, but regret and fear. Then the darkness took him. The gate slammed shut. Silence, complete, sudden. The wind stopped. The whispers died. The platform was empty. Ryan stood there, shaking, unable to move. The passengers were gone. The gate was closed. Everything was still. For a few seconds, he thought it was over. Then, a sound behind him. He turned slowly. The waiting area, the chairs, the shadows, they were back. But something was different. The passengers had returned. I'd sitting, still, watching. But now, there was one empty seat, right at the front, closest to the gate, waiting. For him. Ryan's breath caught. No. The speaker crackled again. Soft this time, almost gentle. Final boarding. The empty seat seemed to pull at him. Not physically, but mentally, like an invitation, a place, a role. You're next, a voice whispered from nowhere. Ryan stepped back. No, I'm not staying here. The seat remained empty, but the other passengers, they didn't move. They didn't chase him. They just watched, waiting. Ryan turned and ran, straight at the gate. He didn't think, didn't hesitate. He just ran and jumped. Through it, for a split second, everything vanished. Sound, light, air, then impact. Ryan hit the ground hard. Bright light flooded his vision. Voices shouted around him. Hey! He's breathing! Get a medic! He coughed, gasping for air, his chest burning as if he had been holding his breath for hours. He blinked. The airport, the real one. Daylight streaming through the glass windows. People everywhere. Normal. Alive. Ryan let out a broken laugh. I didn't board. But later that night, alone in his apartment, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. One seat remains. Ryan stared at the screen, frozen. Then slowly, he looked up, at the reflection in his window, and behind him, for just a second, he saw them, sitting, waiting, and the empty seat was still there.